Hi, friends and family. It's me, Shannon Stott, and we are here to do improv on and off the topic. Ooh, 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 a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yes, we're good. We're feeling good. I'm feeling good. We are talking about response. We're talking about response all month, and the overarching topic of the year is community. And I'm not talking, when I say we're talking about it, I'm not saying just me and you watching. I'm saying me and Emily Arnold. Emily Arnold!
I'm here.
Yay! How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh my goodness. I am so
A little
good.
dark. My lighting did not have a chance to set my lighting today.
It's okay, because the reason we're here is all about response. How will you respond to your lighting situation?
Well, probably by reaching over and grabbing my ring light and moving it closer, being
Look at
honest.
that.
So there we go. That's a little better.
It just happened. It just happened. Listen. Well, I say listen, but more like talk. The last time we got together, we were talking about all sorts of different ways to respond. But at the very, very end of the conversation, you were like, but this is just all about blankety blank. Will you just remind
no. What did I
Oh
say?
no. So we were talking specifically, we were talking about the points. We were talking about choice points, I
Making
believe.
choices.
Yes.
And how we always make choices. Yes.
Right. And how usually there's like you were describing a diagram, like oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like thinking about if something happens when you have like a point in time, you have a point in time like right here, like a little dot, if you're feeling something and you're like, it's typically like, I'm feeling some sort of way. Either I'm feeling uncomfortable or I have to make a choice. There are a couple ways you could go. So if you think about it, kind of like some arrows, you can either move like away from the uncomfortable thing. It's uncomfy, right? So you can either move away from something that's uncomfy. You could move towards something that's important. I have messy handwriting, something that's important. But you always have a choice to like move away from uncomfortable things, move towards something that's important. You can move away from something that's just going to relieve the discomfort, but it doesn't always go in the same direction as the things that's important. And so that's kind of what we talked about in terms of responding.
Right. And I want to talk a little bit today about the physicality of responding. Oh.
Okay.
The physicality of responding and the mental, like the shift that goes from mental to the physical. So on stage, we have so many options when we're talking about the physicality of responding. And I said off stage. Did I say off stage?
And
I
also
said
on stage.
on stage. So I want to talk first, like we like to talk about, I want to talk about responding on stage, because we have this ability, we have this beautiful ability to create specifically what it is that we want. So when an offer is given to us, we can physically move towards that offer or away. We can scene paint. We can use our bodies in a way that shows how we're responding. Can we do that off stage? And
Yeah.
if so, how?
Yeah, there are a bunch of ways that we can respond to anything in life. Your partner tells you that they love you, right? You can either like straight up be like, oh, I love you too, or you can just like give them a little kiss, or you can give them a little hug, or if you're feeling saucy, you can just go and turn away. There are lots of choices that you can make, and all the responses that you put into the world will then impact the world, right? So like in terms of the response to your partner, Partner tells you that they love you, and then you do, the difference between you saying, "Oh, I love you too," and the difference between you being like, "Well, you didn't do the dishes," is going to evoke two different responses from your partner. You're going to change that you're going to change the environment of your interaction with your partner, and they're going to give you something different back.
Can you, what you just said was really important to me, changing the environment of your partner. Can you talk about that in terms of your work a little bit? Because as a licensed board certified behavioral analyst, you work with a lot of different people, and the idea is to change their environment so that they can respond in certain ways, right?
Yeah, my main gig right now is I work for a company that includes an early education center, and I train the staff at the early ed center. And my main goal is to increase their play activity, so that the students who are there can have a happier time uh, and learn through play, which we all know is very important. And so what I'm doing directly is changing the student's environment by changing the behavior of the staff. But in order to change the behavior of the staff, I need to change other things about the staff's environment, because all that we're doing when we're responding and behaving in our world is responding to our environment, right? So it's a whole give and take. So um, I work on setting up a place where it's okay to play and be silly for the staff, so that they in turn can respond by playing and being silly with their kids, who then get to be in an environment and learn in a way that is silly and full of play.
Can you take us through an exercise that might like take us through response?
Oh, yes, I can. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to do, if I'm working with a group, some improvisational exercises, right? In terms of how we learn how to be spontaneous. And just like everything that we do as a behavior, it takes practice. One thing that I really like to do is word associations, in terms of getting us used to being spontaneous and making a big, bold, committed choice. I have staff stand in a circle, and someone starts with just like one word, any word, and then the next person says a word that they are reminded of by that. And then the next person says a word that reminds them of that. You're focusing on the word beforehand. And so we're doing that as an example of we hear something in our environment, we see something in our environment, and we respond boldly and spontaneously to that stimulus that we just got, in a way that can be fun and silly and doesn't have to be like strict rules, right? And so that's an exercise that we can use to practice that thing.
I love the strict rules part. So the idea that you don't always have to be responding in an environment that has super strict rules. You can bend if you can find out how to do it. You can sort of bend the rules that are around you, right?
Most things do have bendy rules. Like life has bendy rules, right? And even places that have pretty strict guidelines, there is still a variation of responding that you can give within those guidelines, right? Um, it, if you are, even humans who work a job where like safety is first and you have like a very strict set of things that you do, there still might be a little bit of variation in the way you do things, right? Probably in ways that don't affect the portion that is safe or unsafe. If you're working on an oil rig, maybe you can still like hum a jaunty tune while you're doing it. Um, and so, yeah, the fewer restrictions and rules that there are on a specific response, the more it opens it up to variability.
Say
And
that
I
one more
think
time. The fewer restrictions.
that there are on a response, the more that opens it up to variability, right?
Yeah.
And I think that can be hard for some people. That's what I've learned in working with staff, is that when when they're doing like instructional teaching with their kids, right? They're given a picture of a dog and they hold up a picture of a dog and they say, "What is this?" And the kid says, "Dog." That's a pretty like clear. There's a pretty solid restrictions into what the behavior should be there. But when I say, "Okay, go over to the kitchen set and play," I think they get kind of like choice paralysis sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we need to create an environment where you can practice spontaneity and trying out some different things with your environment.
Right. I love this idea, or not even the idea, but the remembering that we do get choice paralysis, and the practicing of how we can conjure up even all the choices that are available to us.
Mm-hmm.
There's when I do there's a game that I play and I ask people to do exactly that, right? So I give them just, a few different nothings. Like I ask them to reach into their pockets, pull out what's in their pockets. Sometimes it's pennies, sometimes it's a paper clip or whatnot, and get into a group and create a game. Play. And I was telling this to my husband and he was like, that is the most terrifying thing that I have ever heard. And he said, I wouldn't be able to create under those circumstances because the parameters aren't clear. And but that is what we're doing on stage. At least we're practicing that on stage all the time.
Yeah, I think what it winds up being, what we teach in terms of when there aren't parameters, when we don't like when someone doesn't set rules for you, right? I think what we teach in improv and what the skill is that we need to learn is how can we notice what's in our environment and play based on, how like we set up a reality in improv where we set up a like, if this is true, then this is also true.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of make rules of the world. What I think is helpful to teach in an instance such as like you're given a bunch of items is looking at the stimuli in front of you, the items in front of you, the environment in front of you. If those things are part of your environment, if these are true, these are your rules, what else is true, right? So you're not given explicit rules, but you can be given a little bit of like a jumping off point and some sort of guidance, right? If you say, I gave you a bunch of objects and make up a story, that's different than saying, I gave you a cup, make up a story, right? Because that, and then learning to focus in on that cup and being like, okay, what reminds me of cup? What can I do with a cup? What are the things that are related to cup? And how can I respond?
Right.
So it's that kind of independent learning how to narrow down the field and build the web rather than being explicitly told how to narrow down the field.
Right. Because on stage, we are making those choices as we go. And the choice can be, I want to be like more, what do you call it? Focused. So if I am an ogre, we like to use the ogres, right? If there is an ogre presented to us and that ogre is just an ogre. But if there is one, what if that is true, what else is true? If there is an ogre, where does that ogre live? That ogre might live under a bridge. If it does live under a bridge, what else is true about that ogre? Maybe it's shy. It lives under a bridge because it's shy. If that is true, if it's a shy ogre, then what choices does it make, this ogre, throughout the day? And what is inspiring to me when I hear that and when we're talking about it is the part about how our partners respond, right? So if I choose to be that ogre and my partner says, you're the ogre that lives under the bridge, then I get to also make a choice based on that, and that now we're going back and forth and making those choices. And I'm wondering,
it's a symbiotic relationship between anytime we're responding or behaving in the environment, is a symbiotic relationship between us and the environment, and the other people are the environment. And it goes back and forth all day long. Absolutely. Yes, go ahead, continue.
No, to take that off stage, it's important to remember that oh, this is interesting. Okay, let me see if I can formulate this. It's important to remember that because there is the web that you're talking about for each individual person,
Mhm.
when we respond to something and our partner, and in this case, offstage, our boss, our child, our friend, our whatever, responds in a way that is it that you didn't anticipate, you have to remember that they too have all of these webs, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's this want to jump to a conclusion as to why they responded to what how you responded or to what you said, but your conclusion might be wrong because they have as many webs as you have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We all throughout our lives have built up a bunch of associations and some strong learning histories regarding a whole bunch of things in our environment, right? And things that look like things in our environment.
Mhm.
That's the cool thing about human brains, is that we can associate things we haven't yet experienced because they're probably similar to things we have experienced in some way. Um, and yeah, that all humans are doing that all day long, and that we're very complicated. We're just a group of complicated humans.
The thing that is important to me, and I wonder if you can talk about this in a behavioral analyst sort of brain way, is we as improvisers forget that we have the power to ask, right? We do have the power to say, either you're responding, either are you an ogre that lives under a bridge? Like, we can ask the actual person. Like, I can
Mhm.
ask Emily, Emily, did you mean you were an ogre or did you mean you were okra? Like, what did you say? We can ask those questions. And I understand that it's very, oh, people are going to be like, you can't break the fourth wall, Shannon. But the reason that we practice that is so that we can be on the same page on stage and we can create in a story that we're both living in. And if we take that mentality and take it off stage and do the same thing, the same work to say, like, did you mean what I heard you say was blank, blank, blank? And what I understand from that is blank, blank,
Mhm.
blank. Is that what you meant? And then now we
Mhm.
can, it's the same co-creation that we're doing when we're setting up a world, a friendship, a relationship, a co-working relationship, whatever it is.
Yeah, or even relationships, projects, interactions that you have on the
Mhm.
street.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes,
That
I agree.
How do you so when you are helping your clients to navigate worlds, to respond in certain ways, question one is, what are some of the things you are usually working on their response to? And then two, how are you guiding them through that?
So standard a standard response in my field would be that uh, we teach people to respond to like a particular environmental stimuli, and then provide some sort of reinforcement for responding appropriately to that environmental stimuli.
Mhm.
But that is very broad. And I like to work flexibly, because the world is flexible and the world is chaos, right? And so, the example that I said that was very specific, like you show a picture of a dog and you teach your kid that that's dog. If you always use the same dang picture of the same dang dog and they always said dog, when you look at that picture of a dog, then you're never going to learn about other kinds of dogs, right? And so it is important to show different stimuli, and also to like accept and teach and get excited about different kinds of answers. Like, oh, that looks like a small dog. That's a Chihuahua. That looks like my pet Fluffy. Oh, that's a big dog. Any of those things, like, and that's okay. And then we as humans, we naturally tend to, because when we do something in our environment, it changes the environment, right? So we naturally change the behavior of other people by interacting with them, right? I naturally make it more or less likely for you to respond in a similar manner when I do that thing again, right? Whether it's traditionally in our field, we have what we call like contrived reinforcers, whether that's like a high five or a sticker or an M&M. But as human beings, we do this all the time naturally anyway. So I get kind of stoked about trying to teach these social interactions. This is mostly what I do, since I mostly work directly with staff. Most of what I do is like those subtle social, like, yeah, that's right, you did the right thing. Or like you said the right thing, or continuing in this conversation. Like you and I having this conversation, we are, because of the way that you and I talk to each other, is inherently reinforcing and makes it more likely for us to want to talk to each other. Once we finish talking, the other person then starts talking because we naturally reinforce each other. I think that was a very long answer to what you were asking. So whether or not I increase or decrease the likelihood of you asking me this question again in the future, I don't know. I don't know until we get there.
Here's what I picked up, because the some of the bits that I picked up that are really important, that I'm just like, uh-oh, Emily, we're about to have a chit chat. And it is, you said, if you show the same picture of the same dog over and over again, then the response is, oh, that and only that is a dog. Okay, so I'm like, we're gonna blow that out, right?
If you ever get to see me, if anyone ever gets to see me, like I'm actually working directly with kids, and I'm supposed to run any programs, you'll see that I don't usually grab their materials. I grab all sorts of stuff throughout the classroom. For that reason.
Right. Right, because in the world, we're about to say the stuff, but in the world, when we have one experience, or we think that one culture or one type of person or one type of gender or one whatever acts that way, if we have a picture in our mind and we're just like that, all dogs look and act like that picture, then we don't have the capacity to learn and to respond when a different dog, right? Culture, race, gender does something that is out of our norm. We don't know how to respond. And in fact, it sounds like what you're saying is we can inevitably train ourselves to respond negatively. We can inevitably train ourselves to respond to a stimulus the same way every time, even though the stimulus is different.
Yeah. Especially if that stimulus, because we are human beings capable of making associations with things, right? If that stimulus is associated with something that is not good, something that you do not like for any reason, then we can definitely respond negatively to things, right? When I was young, I think food aversions is probably the quickest way to explain this to most people, right? I one time got really sick after a friend's birthday party where I ate a lot of strawberry cake. And you know what I cannot eat now is strawberry cake. Cannot do it because I have the feeling, that stomach flu, throwing up feeling associated with strawberry cake. And so, but plenty of things can become our strawberry cakes. If you're not careful. Yes, Shannon.
Ooh.
Yes.
Me. Okay.
Yeah, you.
Many things can become that strawberry cake. Is there a way, though? There has to be. There's many ways. And I'm wondering, scientifically, is there a way to start working on changing that response to strawberry cake?
Yeah. Yes. Repeated exposures without the negative consequence, essentially, right? Um, I mean, I think exposure therapy is something that people are pretty familiar with.
Mhm.
Whether it is like slowly inching you towards like just eat a little bit of strawberry cake and oh look, I feel fine. There are some people who would straight up be like, okay, and now you're gonna eat this entire piece of strawberry cake and nothing's gonna happen to you and it's fine. And everywhere in between. Uh, I kind of ascribe a little bit more towards the slow and steady wins the race
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do some slow positive introductions, pair the strawberry cake. I will now eat like chocolate cake with a tinge of strawberry, right? Because I like chocolate cake, and so I've kind of shaped that up a little bit.
Mhm.
And so that's one way that we can kind of fix uh, some of those aversions if that is something that is problematic in your life. Um, you
Yeah.
know, another food that I had stomach illness with was like a lot, like when Lunchables had those subs, and those no longer exist. So like, I don't need to worry about that.
So I'm gonna jump us into this. We're gonna take that strawberry cake and replace it with humans, right?
Mhm.
Different, because we're talking about community. As we're talking about response this month, we are also talking about community and building our communities. So the idea of having an aversion or having a response to uh to a different culture, right? Like having a response that is a negative response to a culture that's not your own. It
Mhm.
sounds like there is a way to slowly ease yourself to changing that averse response. And some of that is, I mean, some of that is what like watching movies, reading books, sure, but visiting, attending events that are not your culture, these types of things.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
examples of seeing examples that are not what you thought that it was. Seeing different examples, right?
Mhm.
Of people succeeding, of people in marginalized communities watching a movie where it's not just about their trauma, right? Or like how
Right.
hard it is, like watching people succeed, and making those associations as well. Getting to know people as well, right? Like uh, getting to meet a friend and learn all of that friend, their strengths and their weaknesses, because they are all whole people
Mhm.
and everyone is whole people.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
It's just, so I'm excited to talk about this, and I'm excited to see how we can shift right at 29 minutes. What back to on stage, right? So we're talking about strawberry cake becoming people. Right?
strawberry kiss with people. Yep. Mhm.
Yep, strawberry cake are people. Strawberry cake are people too. And figuring out how to respond, how to get ourselves into the mode of changing our averse responses to strawberry cake slash cultures we don't know about, and what benefits that have on stage, and also how improv can help us practice those things. How do we do
Yes.
that? Yes. Yes. So one, as you were, yeah, no, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Nope, you go.
Okay, so one of the you were talking about sitting in a circle, responding to people, right? Responding to what was just said, doing that with people that you don't know, and realizing that sometimes the there's two parts to this. One, being vulnerable enough to offer up responses that come from your lived experience and not the experience that everyone lives. So
Mhm.
whenever we play things like the game you're talking about, there is the North American response, right? Like if I say blue, you might say sky, right? Or
Mhm.
if I say sweet, you might say ice cream, right?
Mhm.
These are sort of a giant North American, we're all sort of understanding what this is. But if someone says sweet and I say plantain, right?
Mhm.
There is a difference. I'm sort of trying to be vulnerable enough to reach into myself to respond in a way that is uh, culturally me, or all of me, a little
Yeah.
deeper than what everyone in the room is looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. And that's I think that's very interesting because that's another level of that game to like give you time to think about that, to think about what is unique to you. Because even as you're saying those words, I had different words in my brain. Because I think there's a couple levels. There's the level of what would everyone think is an okay response to this?
Mm-hmm.
What is my gut response to this? And then what is a unique response to this? I think those are the
Mm-hmm.
three levels, right? I tend to live in that middle level. Uh, the like my gut response. You said sweet. I thought frog because that's a chain of frozen yogurt places around here. Uh, but you're right. If we take a second and an extra breath
Mm-hmm.
to look inside ourselves and think about what makes us unique, that does add an extra layer there. I like that.
Yeah. And that extra layer, it does take some vulnerability. But as we sort of move up through the layers, or if we talk about, this the response that we're talking about and how it affects community, if we are able to reach inside ourselves a little bit, then we can start to affect how other people respond to us, right? They won't
Mhm.
always respond in the same way. That same picture. I wish I had a picture of a dog. They won't always respond like, oh, dog. This is how I respond to dog.
Yeah,
Yes,
like a
thank you.
little dog with a little nose and doggy ears and dog. That's a cat.
Dang it. But
Hang on, the
if
tail straighter. Okay, now it's a dog.
right, this is good. This is a better dog. It's a much better dog.
This is
But
good. This is quality.
it's quality art, craftsman and
Mhm.
artsmanship. But there is, as we are over like by three, I think it's important for us to remember, one, improv helps us develop quick responses. It helps us to develop quick responses. It also helps us to recognize and to drop deeper into what those levels that you're talking about, right? What is the response that everyone is sort of accepting? What is the response that maybe I sort of is different? And then what's the response that's unique to me? And if we
Mhm.
can do that, we can affect our community and the way that people respond to us. And if we're doing that, if everyone's doing that, then it also affects the way we respond to other people.
Yeah, because if we're all acting in a way that's true and authentic to ourselves, then first of all, we have something that has a lot of diverse ideas, which is very cool, and playing to people's strengths. So people are helping to their highest capacity and where they're able to support the most, people feel more supported. Um, and then, yeah, we all recognize each other as different humans with those strengths and different qualities and lived experiences.
Emily, it took a little. We got there.
How
It was
long
really
is
important.
it?
We did it with 5 minutes, 5 minutes and to 10 seconds over. but but we got there, and I feel like it was really important because I you and I love improv. You and I love it so much. And there is so much that we're talking about in these discussions. It's important to like dive deeper and really talk about, yay, yes, improv, yay, improv. But how is it affecting the world? Like, right?
Mhm.
You know what? Since we're already over, I'm just gonna say this. We have a show coming up at the end of the month.
We sure do.
We sure
We sure
do. It's on
do.
the 29th
Live
and
in
the
person.
30th. A live and in-person show. So look us up, go to shannonstott.com and find the link and go to our show because it's going to be amazing. We'll do much more of this. Emily Arnold's going to actually be in Austin.
I'm so super present. It's going to be cool.
She is going to do it. It's going to be great. And so we will definitely see you on and
Off the stage.
bye,
Bye.
everybody.